What if I told you that starting over isn't a setback, it's actually a setup? That the hardest part of starting over isn't the loss, it's actually our perspective about it. Well, today we're going to be diving into something that most of us try to avoid until we have no other choice, and that's starting over. And we're going to be pulling back the layers and talking about the misconceptions. I'm going to try to help you see that starting over is not something that you should dread because it's the end of it, but actually it's the beginning of something better. So wherever you're listening from, your car, your couch, your cubicle, or even if you're in a comeback season, man, I need you to buckle up, get ready. I believe this is something that's going to bring great value to your life, man. Next on the I'm a Bridge podcast. Man, what's up, friends, and welcome to the I'm a Bridge podcast. This is a space where we're going to be talking about starting, sustaining, and stepping to all that God has for you. I'm Gordon Dove, man. I'm your host, and I don't know whether you're beginning a new chapter in your life, if you're holding steady in the struggle, or if you're just pressing toward your purpose. I believe that this is where you're going to find a great space and a great home so you can grow in those specific areas, right? We're going to be trying to keep it honest in our conversations. We're going to lean on truth. And trust that every step that we step into, man, during our conversations is going to be a step of growth, a step of practicality, a step of progress, and that it's all a part of God's plan. Look, today we're going to be diving into something I think that we all face at some point in life, and that's going to be starting over. Now, maybe you stopped in here, wherever you're listening, however you're listening on your digital platforms. Maybe you're here because maybe life hits you with an unexpected reset, like it does a lot of us. Maybe a door closed, a relationship ended. Maybe a dream didn't work out the way that you thought that it possibly would. And right now you feel like you're standing in like the wreckage and you're wondering, what in the world do I do now? But what if I told you that starting over isn't a setback, it's actually a setup? And in this episode, in our time together in this conversation, we're going to be bridging the gap between where you are right now and where God is leading you to. Now, I'm going to be trying to break down the differences between what's necessary and what's a preference. And hopefully we're going to be shifting the way you see the reset button of life. Because this isn't the end of your life or your story. It's actually a new beginning for you. And so before we get going and we start having this conversation, I just want to take a little bit of time. And I want to thank, first of all, the Lord for this opportunity to actually share with you lovely and wonderful and amazing leaders, amazing people, world changers, everything that you are, man. I don't take it lightly. I'm super grateful for this opportunity. And then second, I want to thank our sponsors who make this possible for us to be able to share with you. And I want to start by just thanking Rice Realty Properties for sponsoring this work that we're doing. Rice Realty Properties, just love what you guys are doing. Thank you for sponsoring us. And also want to thank the Dove's Nest for sponsoring us. You guys make what we do absolutely easy. Starting over is something that if you haven't faced it, at some point you are going to face it. And let's be honest, it's not fun at all. I don't believe anybody chooses just to wake up and want to start over for fun. I mean, I don't believe that you choose to wake up and say, man, you know what? Today I want to lose everything and I want to have to rebuild from scratch. See, having to start over usually comes with a lot of turmoil and unpleasant moments. Most of the time, starting over comes after a breakup or a loss of a job, a failed dream. Maybe you made a major move in life and it didn't work out the way that you would have liked it to work out. Or maybe you experienced a betrayal, right? Maybe you had a plan that just didn't pan out. And see, when it happens, it doesn't feel like a fresh start at all. It actually feels like a funeral. And we end up mourning what was. We end up living in a pit of regret the majority of times. And maybe some of you listening, you're at that place right now where you're constantly replaying over and over in your mind what went wrong. You're literally feeling in this moment like you are stuck. And instead of you moving forward or toward what's next, you feel like you're constantly sinking in a hole of coulda, woulda, shoulda. But what if I told you that starting over doesn't mean you're starting from nothing? See, most people dread starting over because they feel like everything that they have worked for, the connections, the money, the resources, the progress in whatever way they made progress, they feel as though it's all thrown away and now they have to start from zero, nothing. But I would like to suggest to you that you actually are not starting from nothing. that you already have everything you need in this moment right now as you listen to me to begin again. See, what if starting over wasn't happening to you, but it was actually happening for you? And that's what I want to unpack today. The truth about starting over. Why it's not a loss, but it's actually a launch pad. How to tell the difference between what's necessary and what's just a preference, and how to make peace with the reset button on your life. And listen, if you've ever felt like you're at rock bottom, like life wiped the slate clean without your permission, I want you to know today, this conversation is for you. I mean, let's be real. When life forces us to start over, our first thought is, I've lost everything. The job is gone. The relationship is over. The money dried up. The dream didn't work out. And suddenly, I believe we feel like we're starting at rock bottom, empty, wiped out, back at zero. But here's the truth. I need you to catch this for a moment. You're not starting with nothing. You're starting with everything you need. I'll put it this way. Just imagine that your life is a journey. And on this journey, you've been carrying a backpack since day one, right? This is just special. I'm not talking about the Louis bag, but you've been carrying this backpack since day one. And over time, you've picked up tons of things. You've picked up experiences. You've picked up relationships. You've picked up skills. You've picked up habits. Of course, some good habits and some bad habits. But nonetheless, throughout life, you have been able to accumulate so many different items in your bag, and you get comfortable with what's in your bag. Then life happens and it disrupts your comfort. It disrupts everything that you have put into your bag. The habits, the skills, the relationships, the giftings, the plans, the businesses, the opportunities, the people. It gets disrupted all of a sudden. And now you're forced to start over. And now you're starting at an empty road thinking, I don't have anything left. But here's the question. Have you really lost everything? Now, you probably lost the toxic people. They're gone. The distractions are now absolutely gone. They've been removed. The things that's been holding you back, life definitely shook those things loose. But my question to you is, what is still in your bag? What is still in your bag? Some of you, I don't know where you are, but I want you to know that in your bag right now, you still have resilience. You still have wisdom. You still have your God-given gifts. You still have the purpose that God has placed over your life. Listen, God never takes you back to zero. He only takes you back to the essentials. Can I say that again? God never takes you back to zero. He takes you back to the essentials. See, sometimes we filled our bag with so many things that we've forgotten what's most important. And see, it's in those reset seasons, the starting over seasons, that we actually get to see what is most essential, the things that are absolutely necessary for our future. See, when life pulls the rug from under us, when everything familiar is stripped away, our first instinct is really to panic. The job is gone, the friends are gone, the stability is gone, the plan is it's all over. So we get into this panic mode. We assume that if something is gone, it is essential. But that's not true. What if some of what we lost, guys, wasn't necessary? What if some of it was actually extra weight? And I believe sometimes we packed our lives so full that we don't even realize what's truly important. And it's in a reset season, a starting over season, a season like where you are right now, this very moment. Although I know it's grueling, I know it's tough, I know you're ready to get out of it, but it's in this very moment, the hard restart, that we get to see actually what matters. What good is it for us to run a race and to be ahead in a race that was a race never meant for us? A race that even when we get to the finish line, the reward was never meant for us. No, this thing is about let's get to the essentials in life. This start over for you is about focusing on what's important, getting at your start line in life, and then running the race that God has placed before you. So every bit of your effort, every bit of your work, every bit of your output, when you reach that particular goal, you can now partake in the reward that was set out for you. Think about this. Imagine you're packing for a trip. Right. And you're throwing everything in your suitcase, clothes, shoes, books, random stuff, like things that you just think you might need. But when you get to the airport, right, reality starts to hit. Your bag's overweight. I know this all too well. My goodness. I know what it's like. And man, does my wife champion this very scenario. You get there, pull the bag out. You get in front of the clerk. You take that big old suitcase and throw it on that scale, and they say to you, excuse me, this is overweight. Now, what do you end up doing? Now you end up with all those people standing behind you. Take in mind, you've been standing in this line for a half an hour. Now it's finally your turn, and now you got a whole group of people standing behind you, and now you have to open up the suitcase and try to figure out what's necessary and what's just taking up space. And you're pulling, well, maybe we'll take this, or maybe I don't need this. This is necessary. And you're holding up the people behind you. You're making your process longer. Now it's taking you longer to get to where it is that you needed to be. You might even miss TSA now and your flight because now you're trying to sort out what's necessary, what's needed, and what's not. And that's exactly what happens in our lives. We carry so much expectations, relationships, positions, opinions, old wounds, unnecessary comments, and then life hits us with that reset. And it's in that moment. It's in this moment. We're forced to stop and ask ourselves, what do I actually need where I'm going? Because not everything that you packed for the last season is meant to go with you to the next one. See, sometimes what we see as loss is actually a gift. That friendship that faded, well, just maybe that friendship wasn't meant for your next season. The opportunity that didn't seem to work out, maybe, I know it was a great opportunity. I know it was once in a lifetime for other people. But maybe that opportunity could have become a distraction for you. The security that you depended on, maybe God was showing you that He alone is your source, not what you depended on in the last season, because where He's taking you next, you have to be connected to the true source. See, we mourn what's left, but what if we saw it all differently, guys? What if instead of focusing on what's missing, we asked this question: what do I have left? Because what remains is what's essential. You want to know what essential is? You want to know what is necessary that you have right now? I'll tell you what's necessary. First, your faith remains. Faith is absolutely necessary. Without faith, it's impossible for you to please God, to accomplish anything, because what? You have to see it before you see it. And without faith, you can't see anything. Your resilience remains. What is that? That is your ability to keep your head down and keep pushing in spite of obstacles. And without resilience, you won't be able to reach, accomplish, or stand through anything. Your gifts remain. Your natural God-given talents that God has placed inside of you, those were not taken away from you. That's what God gives you, not only to bring Him glory, but to be able to bring wealth and beauty to the world and to yourself. Your purpose remains. What God has given you, the purpose that's on your life, it still remains. Your ability to rebuild and create, it still exists. In spite of your start over, it is still there. And that's where the shift happens, guys. When you stop seeing yourself as empty and you start seeing yourself as equipped. Because everything you lost wasn't necessary, but everything you have is enough. Let me say that again. Everything you lost wasn't necessary, but everything you have was enough. See, a reset isn't about what's taken away, it's about what's revealed. See, sometimes, guys, we're not struggling with what's been taken away. We're actually struggling with what we refuse to let go of. And that's where some of you are right now. You're stuck because you're still holding on to what you prefer instead of what's actually necessary. We get to the airport this time, right? And you go to weigh your bag, right? We're at the same place trying to weigh it in, right? You're over the limit. Now, here's what's going to happen. The airline will give you two choices. They can say either you can remove some things from that bag or you can pay the price for the extra weight. And a lot of us, we're living life just like that, overpacked and overweight. And we're unwilling to let go. See, some of us would rather pay the price of frustration, anxiety, stress, and delay than let go of things that we were never supposed to be carrying in the first place. And here's the reality. God will never upgrade where you're going until you lighten your load. Let me say it another way. God will never upgrade your destination until you lighten your load. And we got to get to the place, guys, where we understand that there is a big difference between what's necessary and what's just a preference. And see, a lot of times we confuse those two. Now, I want to break this down, right? When we think about necessary, right? Necessary are the things that sustain you. What's necessary are the things that build you. What's necessary are the things that move you forward. What's necessary are the things that are connected to your calling. Let me say that again. What's necessary are the things that will sustain you. The things that are going to build you. The things that move you forward in life and into your purpose, your calling, to the things that are fulfilling, and the things that are connected to your calling. Now, here's what's crazy. Those are the things that are necessary. But I want you to know that things that build you are not always the things that are enjoyable, because trial builds you. Struggle, challenge can build you. Loss can build you. Child struggles can move you, and they can sustain you because you learn to stand. And oftentimes, trial and challenge are connected to your calling. So when I talk about what's necessary, I don't want you to take these things and think that, hey, well, he says to sustain me, and you're looking for what's always easy. That's not true. Now let's jump to preference for a minute. What is a preference? All right, here we go. Preference are the things that make you comfortable. Preference are the things that make you comfortable, but watch this caveat, but they aren't required. Preference are the things you want, but you don't actually need. Preference are the things that can become distractions. For example, you might prefer a certain title at a job, but that's not what's necessary. What's necessary is having a position that aligns with your purpose. You might prefer a certain relationship, but that's not what's necessary. What's necessary is having people in your life who actually push you toward your destiny. Look, if you don't know the difference, you're going to keep carrying things that God never intended for you to hold on to. Let's look at scripture for a minute. Let's take a moment to look at the Israelites while they were in the wilderness. Exodus 16, the Israelites had been delivered from slavery in Egypt. But when things got uncomfortable, they started complaining. Instead of trusting God, they started to reminisce and romanticize about their past. In Numbers 11, 5-6, scripture says that we remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Also the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, the garlic. My goodness, are they reminiscing about all the tasty things that they had in Egypt? But listen, they say, but now we have lost our appetite. we never see anything but manna. Isn't that so much like us? Isn't that like us? We get to the place where we look at what was in the past and we begin to romanticize and miss it. And we think that what was in the past was something so great, when in all actuality, where we are right now, one of the best positions that we've ever been in. It's crazy when I hear the Israelites speak and talk like this in scripture, because I'm looking at that and they're saying, man, we did all this at no cost when we were in Egypt. But here's what's crazy. They were actually slaves. You were slaves. But because what God was providing wasn't their preference, they started longing for what was actually holding them back. They were literally willing to go back to bondage just because it was familiar. And that's how some of us are. We when we start over, we say we want something new, but we keep longing for what's comfortable. We say we trust God, but we secretly wish we could control the process. We say we want purpose, but we refuse to let go of the things that we don't prefer. We say we want purpose, but we refuse to let go of the things that don't serve us anymore. See, when you know and understand the difference between the preferences and what's necessary, that's how you can really stand strong in your starting over season. But when you don't know the difference between the necessity and the preference, you'll mistake provision for punishment. Let me say that again. When you know the difference between necessity and preference, you'll be able to stand strong and walk through this starting over season. But when you don't know the difference between necessity and preference, you will always mistake provision for punishment. Because let's be real, starting over feels unfair. It feels like punishment. It feels like literally we are behind. Who's like that right now that's listening? You feel like in your life that you are behind. You feel like you should be further along. You feel like after all the work that you put in, all of the sleepless nights, all of the planning, all of the books that you took time to read, all of the people you connected with in the way of mentorship, all of the prayers, all of the helping other people that you have done, you feel like you should be further along, but you feel like you're behind. Feel like you just wasted years of your life, really only to end back up at square one. But what if I told you that starting over is not punishment, it's a gift? God isn't in the business of recycling your past. He is writing something completely new. Isaiah 43:18-19. It says, forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a what? A new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Can you not see the new thing that I'm doing? I want you to know a fresh start isn't a setback. It's an opportunity. See, one of the greatest stories of a fresh start in the Bible is Peter. Now, if anyone knew what it felt like to fail and have to start over, it would have to be him. Man, y'all know the stories, man. Peter was a gangster. Man, Peter was bold, always the first to speak, always ready to move. It's in scripture, Peter cut an ear off because somebody got out of line with Jesus. Peter walked on water. He saw miracles. He sat at the table with Jesus. But when things got tough, Peter denied Jesus. Not once, not twice, but 3 times he denied Jesus. Now imagine the guilt. Imagine the shame. I can imagine Peter probably thought, man, I'm done. God's never using me again. But what did Jesus do? He didn't throw Peter away. He didn't counsel him. Instead, after his resurrection, Jesus came to Peter and he asked him one simple question. Peter, do you love me? Not why did you fail? Not why didn't you do better? Not why did you let me down? Just one simple question. Do you love me? Because when God gives you a fresh start, he's not focused on where you fail. He's focused on where you're going. Jesus told Peter what? Feed my sheep. What does that mean? Not only do I love you, I still have work for you to do. Failure isn't final, y'all. Your fresh start is proof that God isn't finished with you yet. What is happening when God is giving you a fresh start? If God is giving you a fresh start, here's what he's giving you. He's giving you a fresh perspective. Even in this moment, here's what should be coming from this fresh start. Not regret, not the pit of feeling sorry for yourself. But in this moment, if God is giving you a fresh start, this is what you should be getting from it, a fresh perspective. Lamentations 3:22 through 23 says, his mercies are new every morning. You don't have to carry yesterday's mistakes into today because God is giving you a newness, a fresh perspective. 2, fresh start, God is giving you a new opportunity. Revelations 3:8. See, I have set before you an open door that no one can shut. Just because one door closes, I want you to know it doesn't mean another won't open. Third thing, God is giving you strength for the journey. A fresh start, he's giving you new strength for this journey. Isaiah 40:31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. What am I saying? A fresh start doesn't mean it'll be easy, but it means you won't have to do it alone. But you know, God never wastes a fresh start. The page is blank, but the pen is in his hands. And he's not done writing your story. Starting over isn't punishment, y'all. It's permission to build something. But here's where a lot of people get stuck. They get stuck in this. How do I actually move forward? And I know you've been asking that, Gordon. I love what you've been saying, man. Awesome. It's real. It's raw, man. I feel it. It's actually applying to me. But I've heard things like this before. I need to know, how in the world can I move forward when I have to start from nothing? Because a fresh start doesn't mean anything. You keep walking in the old patterns. Let me say that again. A fresh start doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean nothing if you're still making the same decisions that got you stuck in the first place. A lot of us have received a fresh start, but we're still following old directions. We say we want something new, but we're still chasing the same things that led to failure the last time. We say we want change, but we're afraid to let go of the familiar. We say we trust God, but we keep trying to control the outcome. Who am I talking to? I think that's for somebody out here. You say you want change, but you keep trying to control the outcome. Stop trying to control everything. You can't move forward if you're still programmed for the past. Man, there was a guy who had a fresh start, staring at him right in the face, but he almost missed it. In John 5, it was a man who had been crippled for 38 years, sitting by a pool waiting for a miracle. For 38 years, this man had been crippled, sitting by a pool, just sitting, waiting for a miracle. Then Jesus walks up and asks him one question. And do you want to be well? Do you want to be made well? Do you want to be made? No. Now you would think his answer would be an instant yes. Do I want to be made well? Absolutely, man. I've been sitting here by this pool waiting for a miracle for 38 years, and now you're asking me, do I want to be? Absolutely. That's why I'm here. But instead, what does he do? He started making excuses. Nobody helps me get into the water. Other people get there before me. I've been like this for so long. And that's when Jesus shuts it all down and says, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. In other words, Jesus says, move. Stop waiting. Stop making excuses. Stop reliving the past. Your fresh start isn't waiting for permission. It's waiting for action. Can I say that again? Your fresh start, it isn't waiting for permission. It's waiting for your action. So how do we actually move forward? First thing you got to do, you got to change your thinking. Scripture says, Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It's simple. If your mind stays in the past, your life will too. Step 2, stop waiting for perfect conditions. Ecclesiastes 11:4 says, whoever watches the wind, I love this scripture, will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. Stop waiting for everything to be perfect, man, before you move. Just start walking right now. 3, surround yourself with the right people. Proverbs 13:20 says, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Some of you aren't stuck because of where you're going. You're stuck because of who you're walking with. I want you to know, man, that the future is literally waiting. It is waiting for you. But I want to know, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for another confirmation? Are you waiting for someone else to approve you? Are you waiting for the perfect timing? Because if you are, I want you to know the truth. Your future isn't waiting for perfect conditions. It's waiting for you. It's time to stop talking about it. And it's time to stop making excuses. And it's time to get up, pick up your mat, and walk. And remember, God didn't bring you this far just for you to stand still. God didn't bring you this far just for you to stand still. Well, guys, that's our time for today. I pray and I hope that I said something that was a blessing to you. If you made it this far, first of all, I got to shout you out, because listening to this means that you're not just thinking about change, you're ready to actually walk in it. If this episode spoke to you, do me a favor, really fast, really quick. I need for you to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Text it to a friend, post it on your story, send it to that person that you know is struggling to move forward. Let's make this conversation bigger than just us. And of course, before we close out, if you haven't already, make sure to follow on all and subscribe. Follow and subscribe and stay connected on all social platforms for more real conversations and more transformation and more reminders that you are a bridge to something much greater. Thank you, family, for your time. This is your boy, Gordon Dove, and I'll see you next time on the I'm a Bridge podcast.